Everyone, welcome back to Teacher Quit Talk. I hope you have a minute, because give me a minute. So we didn't have like a topic for today, and I was chatting with somebody, and they asked me a question that kind of pissed me off, but then it really got me thinking. They said, what is the purpose of school? Like, what is the purpose of education? And why should kids or why should parents care at all about getting an education? Like, what is the goal here? What is like the end game? Because like we all know we tell kids to make more money, to get a good job, but like for real, what is the purpose of education? And then I started thinking about it, and I was like, well, kind of parents and kids maybe don't care because we lost the plot a long time ago. Like we're in here, but what is the purpose? And then I was thinking, like, in my mind, when a kid walks across the graduation stage, what do I feel they should be able to do? Like, what is the purpose of them being in my class? Like, what do I want for them that I feel is like our duty as the grown-ups in society to impart on them? And I was like, I bet Fraz has things that I haven't thought of, and vice versa, about like what the purpose and goal of schooling should be.
And I'm really glad that we're talking about this, actually. This was a really good idea on your part, because I think I've talked about this a couple times. I've been really struggling about like what Jay should do for preschool. And part of it is literally that. Like, okay, so what's the point of going to school? And like, what do I feel like she needs? And it's really hard for me to answer this, because when I was in my credential program, like a big project or paper or whatever that you had to write was your educational philosophy. And I always struggled so freaking hard with that. And when I started TikTok, people would be like asking me, what's your educational philosophy? And I really struggle to answer.
I don't know if this says something negative about me, but no one's ever asked me that. Literally in my whole life, no one's ever asked me that.
I think a lot of education students, especially 4 years ago, followed me because I talked a lot about like the credential process and like the EdTPA. And I don't know. I mean, I think the philosophy of education and why it's important is very different than why I teach. So I think that's what I grapple with.
Yeah. And that's what I was thinking about. And I texted him. He said, yes, this was my boyfriend's idea. So sometimes even people in corporate America can have valid takes on education.
Expand your worldview, guys.
Exactly. I was thinking about that too, is like what I view as like the goals of education. A lot of it is why I teach, but not all of it. And there's lots of reasons why I teach that are not the goals of education, that are purely selfish.
Yeah. Like one of the things that's been on my mind a lot recently is why the fuck I even would want to go to grad school. But I really do believe that no education is a waste. I have gone through a lot of different educational ventures as a student, and I haven't used really my degree or explicitly followed the path that I expected to be on. But I feel like in every learning setting that I've been in, I have taken parts of things that I've learned and applied them to everything that I do today. And for that reason, like, I've come to believe that any learning you do isn't ever wasted.
I completely agree with you, but just started feeling that way recently. I think because I so viscerally hated school as a child, and like, you know what? I still do think taking bio in 9th grade was a waste of my time. You know what? That's one that I'm not going to give up. I am going to die on that hill. Some of that was a waste of my time, but I feel the way about all the random jobs I've had that you do about all the educational endeavors. Like, I've had so many random jobs, but I don't regret any of them, because like I feel like being around different people and seeing a different thing, you learn so much. And I feel like as a society, most people feel that way about jobs, but I don't think most people feel that way about school, myself included. But I would love to feel that way. I think it's good to feel that way. But unfortunately, I'm still really mad that I had to read Dante's Inferno when, like, why was no one telling us about climate change? You know, like.
Right. But like from moments like that, I think what I learned is I learned how to take tests. Even though, you know, we never want to, as teachers, teach test taking because it feels so hollow and shitty. But I know how to take a multiple choice test now because I had to do it in school. And I know how to like study effectively. And I know how to cheat.
Yeah, that's a big one. To me, even the classes I look back on, like chemistry and like British lit, that I literally just did not like. There was not a single fiber of my being that cared even a little bit. Like, there was nothing, and there still isn't. But even in those situations where I feel like the content was just not there for me, I still think it's valuable because I think it's valuable to learn how to do things you dislike and learn how to like get along and do the bare minimum of what you need to do to move on to a later thing that you do like. And I think that a lot of what school teaches is that. And I think that there's definitely better stuff we could be doing with our time. But that is a really valuable lesson. And that's what I've told my students like a lot recently because they're all like crying about statistics right now. I don't know what's going on in the math community. They're very upset. No shade to their teacher. Listen, every time they're mad at you, I ride for you so hard. Like, I just want you to know that.
Do they come like from stats to your class?
Some of them do. And then I think it's that like a group have my class together and stats class together. Because the stats teacher told me the same thing. She was like, they're fighting for their life. And I was like, they're really not. It was one graphic organizer.
She's saying that your class is fighting for its life?
Yeah. Like, she's like, when your kids are in my room, they're like fighting for their life. And I'm like, well, when yours, who are also mine, are in my room, same. Like, I think they just don't like doing things, which same. But that's been a big conversation I've been having with them is like, I tell them, like, from jobs I've had in corporate to teaching, there's lots of parts of the day that I'm like, this is a waste of time. I think it's a waste of human resources, but I have to get it done. And I think learning how to get that done in the most efficient and painless way possible is very good practice for adulthood, which is unfortunate, but it is what it is.
I know. It's like how we're always talking about how kids need to be bored and get creative in the boredom. It's unfortunate that that's part of school, but it's a part of any setting that you don't want to be in. And part of life is just always going to be navigating spaces and people that you don't necessarily love. Like, you're not going to love everyone and everything you're surrounded by 24/7.
I wish we lived in a world where we got to just like exercise our critical thinking skills and do work we were passionate about and like engage in social connections. But like some of us have to be account managers at a plumbing company. It's a job that needs to get done.
Plumbers make a shit ton of money too. I know, because I hired one to put in my sink and they were like $700. And I was like, what the fuck do you mean $700?
A man is coming to talk to my class about trade school.
Trade school is highly underrated. I'm telling you, you make so much freaking money and it's hard. It's just a different type of learning. This is a total side tangent. But like, I think when I was in school, people really shit on Votech and they really shouldn't have ever.
No, they make more money and the school is cheaper and just for less time. If you look at every like math piece on like a return on investment standpoint, they're crushing it.
Oh, 100,000,000%. I don't know why people are so weird about it. I think people are better about it now, especially since it's been rebranded by the unions as experiential learning. Like Votech has fully been rebranded in that way.
Interesting.
Yeah. So like part of what AFT does is not just experiential learning in the classroom, but like when we had Mr. Bonham on, he does it with like, hands-on learning and experiential learning in the classroom, but it goes all the way up to high school. And when it gets to that level, it's Votech, it's trade school that they're talking about.
My school has a thing. This is why this man is coming to talk. He was so nice and he was like, anytime you're free, if it's even just for a little bit. And then I found out that they can go to this place. I don't really know what it is. I should have vetted him more, but he's come to the school before, so I'm assuming it's fine. They can go there senior year as work study.
Oh, yeah.
So like they get to leave school early to go there. And I was like, yeah, man, I'm free 5 days a week. Whatever day you're free, these kids are yours. I won't even show up. Like, you got it. Take them outside. Show them the AC units. Anything you want.
Anything you want. That's how we did it too. It was like a half day thing. So senior year, maybe even junior year, it's been 2010 was ages ago. But I know that there was a half day thing where you could do either dual enrollment with a college or you could do Votech. And I think there was a work study element of it. I don't know. I got off part of the year to go do theater, which was really stupid because that's a whole other conversation.
I feel like these programs are getting so much closer to the point of education than like most of the education system. And these are like niche programs that vary a ton by area. And like, I think you're right that in the last 5 years, they've been more prioritized by like state and federal departments of education, but if you're looking at the last like 30, 40 years, I really don't think they have. Like, I don't remember anyone in high school even talking to us about that. Probably because I was in like the advanced classes and like they were convinced we were all going to go to Harvard.
Which, what does it even mean to go to Harvard? That's the other
Exactly.
thing. Like, a ton of people have come up to me talking about Jay, because my brother is highly academic, like wants to be an Ivy League school, like big time smart. And people are asking me like, oh, are you sending Jay to private school? Are you doing accelerated curriculum with Jay? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? And then people will say, well, if she ever wants to go to Ivy League, you have to start right now. And I'm like,
all right, man.
That's a risk that maybe I'm willing to take, like giving her the best choices possible whenever she voices what she wants or does not want. But I have family who's gone to Harvard.
Anyone that is a fan of Bluey doesn't need to be worried about what college they're getting into. Those Venn diagrams should not cross.
Yeah, seriously. My family members who went to Harvard literally started when they were born. Every activity they did was, you're either going to go to the Olympics or this is going to go on your Ivy League application. Like, it was that level of extreme.
Can't we just have a nice time? I feel the same way about that. This is such a tangent, but it's something I'm weirdly passionate about. Competitive dance and cheer is getting so out of hand. Like, can't we just be dancing and cheering to have a good time? Why is everything like the Olympics and Harvard?
And as you mentioned that, Jay is turning 2 next week, and she has 2 choices. Thank you. Has 2 choices. She can go to conservatory ballet or competition ballet. And my husband was like, why are you thinking about this right now?
All I know is everyone I know whose kid is in competition dance, that 7-year-old is wearing a full beat and they're going across the nation every fucking weekend.
I know.
Like, the number of people doing that seems really out of hand. Like, I know we have like our number one, like I know the next JoJo Siwa probably should be doing that, but it seems like, no offense parents, some really average dancers are doing it. And I just am wondering, have we lost the plot?
I know. So I'm not sending her, I didn't do competition dance, and I'm not signing her up for competition unless she wants to do it later.
Why do they have competition? They're due. Why does that exist?
It's not so right now what it would be is, it's like until she's 6, it's like the training academy to be in the competitions.
I just need to reiterate that from age 2 to 6 they're at a training academy. This is not the Navy SEALs. This is what I'm talking about. Like, why? Can't we all just have a good time? Throw the fucking tunes on? Like,
right.
If she at like 7, 8 comes to you and is like, Mom, I want to do competition dance, and any dance studio looks at her and is like, oh, you didn't start the 2-year-old training academy, give me the address of the dance studio.
I will.
Because what is happening to our society? We used to be a country where 7-year-olds could dance. Now they have to train.
So going back to the whole like education thing, I'm thinking, okay, well, what's the point of her doing dance? And I'm like, well, I want her to socialize. I want her to learn a little bit of like discipline and structure, because she currently has none. And obviously she's 2, so it's developmentally appropriate that she has none. But like, I had the worst experience. I went to one competition dance school when I was 10. And we know about the ADHD, but I don't have the cute kind of ADHD. I have the kind of ADHD that I can't remember choreography.
Tough break for a dance school.
It was brutal. And because I couldn't remember anything, they put me with the 3-year-olds as a 10-year-old. And I
oh my God, no.
I was like,
no.
Bye. They give you like a combination and they're like, okay, 5, 6, 7, 8, do it. And I've never been able to do that at an audition anywhere. But they told my mom, they were like, she'll never be a dancer because she can't remember. So I switched to musical theater school after that. I was like,
you're like, my Uber's here.
Get me
so
out of here, Mommy.
I'm gonna go. Okay, this has been a tangent yap, but what do we say? Land the plane. So I was thinking about like, in my dream world where like I am the sole dictator of this country and it's a lifetime appointment. Like, that's the reality we're stepping into. In my eyes, what is like the purpose of education? And my boyfriend was asking me this question. I like was thinking about it, and there's a couple things that I view as the purpose of education, but I think I'm very biased as a social studies teacher, because to me, the most important things are being able to express yourself in a written format, like being able to write well enough that people can understand complex ideas from you, being able to understand complex ideas from others in a written format. And then to me, the other important ones are your ability to detect bias in things and your ability to detect like the motivation of others. And then the other big part that I think like is especially really lacking in schools right now, that like this is part of why I teach, is being able to form an opinion and back it up with evidence regardless of what the opinion is. Like not being right or wrong, but just being able to have like a well-formulated opinion with like strong facts, and then being able to delineate between like fact and opinion and fiction. To me, if a student can do all of that when they walk across the stage at 18, I feel like they're equipped for adulthood. And then obviously like basic math skills and like understanding like context of where you live, like basic geography, basic math, basic cultural norms. So like I said, I think that's very biased towards social studies. I'm sure there's a lot of things I don't want to say missing, but a lot of things I haven't thought about.
To me, and obviously like everybody's going to have a different opinion, and you and I are pretty aligned on a lot of stuff, but like I think that overall, bless you, encompasses a lot of what education is supposed to be and like the intention behind it, because we've already talked about like the purpose of school and the purpose of being a student for us, but being able to express yourself and critical thinking skills and communication skills are huge, I think, across the board.
And I feel like that's what, when my boyfriend was asking me, like, why should parents care about school? Why should kids care about school? I understand why a lot of kids and parents don't care about schools, because if you genuinely ask me, do I feel our current education system is accomplishing what I just laid out? No, I do not.
No. What I see time and time again, and like why I got disenchanted by the education system from a teaching perspective, is myself and so many other teachers are really striving for that. And you hit wall after wall after wall in the education system where you cannot do that.
Yeah.
You can't make that kind of learning happen in the classroom because you're tied up with all kinds of other bullshit. Yeah. And that's very frustrating. When you are like, this is what I believe education is for. This is why I'm here. And then you just can't do it.
To me, the hardest part, I'm trying to figure out how to say this like professionally. It's not only that they give us so much other work that I don't have time to do that. It feels like other forces are actively working against me in that. Like, it's not even like, oh, this isn't being prioritized enough. It feels like I'm like not allowed to do it. And like, I have to, like you said, wall after wall where like, you feel like you're going crazy. You're like, this is so important. Why am I having to defend doing it? Like, you should all be clapping for me.
Right. When I was teaching at a school where everything had to be the same for the people who came to visit, that if they walked into one classroom, they would see the exact same thing happening in the next classroom that they walked into, basically without missing a beat. I had a friend who tried to do a differentiated anchor chart for her kids, and she got in trouble because it wasn't normed across the grade level. And it's like, we need to be serving the kids that are in our classroom and doing what we know is best as educators. And it's very frustrating when you can't do that.
And it just makes no sense. Like, would you ever expect a doctor, a financial advisor, like literally any other service provider in every industry to have across the board the same strategy and plan for every single user, client, whatever you want to call it? It literally makes no sense.
No, it doesn't, because the goals of education requires you to be so differentiated, because not every person is going to arrive at these skills the same way. Mm-hmm. I know that there's research saying that learning styles are bullshit, but I think
I'm on that camp, by the way. Oh, it's my favorite thing to bring up in PDs. I always bring it up like I'm like, it's like 1912 and I'm like the newspaper boy. I'm like, hot off the presses, you didn't hear? Like, I'm absolutely fucking insufferable. Bring up learning styles, it's gonna be the worst day of your life.
I mean, it's backed by research, and that's the whole name of the game. But I think that everybody learns differently, but not in that way. I don't know how to explain it.
I think there is truth to everyone learning differently. What I'm mad at is somehow we got to a place where now I have to make 5 different versions of a lesson for 18-year-olds. That's where you lost me.
Right. When I'm teaching, I think about the modalities of learning where I'm like, let's do a little visual, a little auditory, a little physical. Like I'm thinking like, let's do a little bit of everything because it does really help with it. At the very least, holding their attention, especially in a really young setting where you're like, okay, we gotta hit this 5 different ways, but your attention span is 3 minutes. Let's go, you know?
I feel like this is another example of like how over documentation has destroyed the intentionality around schools, which is like literally our whole point of this episode of like, what's the point of school? How has bureaucracy ruined it? So like, I feel like I agree with you. There's truth of like providing information in multiple formats. And I do that as a high school level at like, sometimes we look at a cartoon, sometimes we look at graphs of data. Like it's good to present information in lots of different ways, but it's really hard to require and mandate that in a way that's consistent across all teachers because that looks so different in every classroom. So instead what they did is added a little box to our lesson plan document where you had to write in, how are you going to modify it for visual learners, auditory learners? And they put something that is actually inherently valuable. They turned it into like bureaucratic nonsense and just put it on us. And now we have data to prove, oh, a teacher filling out 1 extra line item of paperwork just brings more stress to them and has 0 impact on the children. Shocker. Hot off the press. Who would have thunk it?
Time and time again. It's also like we've talked about the deprofessionalization of teaching and like the just lack of trust in teachers as professionals. And we're not getting as much relevant PD as we could.
Keyword relevant. Want any administrators listening, that relevant is in bold and also underlined and hyperlinked. There's a lot of training we attend. Relevant is our keyword there.
Yeah.
And not to be, I'm trying to work on this about myself of like judging things right off the bat. But generally speaking, if I go to a training and it's not compartmentalized by subject area, you kind of lost me. Like, I'm going to try and have a good attitude, but you're not setting yourself up for success here.
I think that makes a lot of sense, though, especially at the secondary level.
Because, like, girl, I don't know math.
I mean, we really glazed over the, like, what's the purpose of education thing, but
in your mind, like, when a kid walks across the stage at graduation, actually, because you've taught more elementary and I want to hear your perspective. When a kid walks across the stage at 5th grade graduation, what do you feel like is like the goal to you? Like if you were the dictator?
In a perfect world, kids would have the ability to collaborate and cooperate in a group setting.
Love that.
And emotionally regulate themselves.
10 out of 10.
I mean, to the best of their ability, because God knows I can barely emotionally regulate myself.
But like to a reasonable amount.
Yes, just like a little bit. I think it's really important at that age to recognize that you're dysregulated at the very least. Something we practice a lot in kindergarten is like, okay, if you're having what we call a big feeling, you can go to the calm down corner and there are 7 different strategies you can use to help make yourself feel better. And like ideally by the time you reach 5th grade graduation, you kind of have this idea in your brain of like, I really like to like run around or talk about it. So I just want to like caveat that I know that that's not appropriate for every single kid, but ideally,
just like the general basics of like recognizing your own emotions. Like I think the point you're trying to get across is like by 5th grade, you should be at the point where like dropping your pencil does not send you into a fit of rage.
Yeah. And if it does, then we're doing something about that. It's hard for me to think of like academic goals.
I feel like for kids that young, at least the way that I view it of like the point of elementary school, I feel like it's not so much about what you know, but like how you feel about learning.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like I think like it doesn't matter if you're reading at like an 8th grade level or a 3rd grade level, but like the way you feel about reading.
Yes. And the reason I said yeah like that is because I so deeply fucking agree with you. Like so deeply agree with you. And one of my biggest issues with elementary school education right now is that I think it's killing kids' love for reading and learning.
Yeah.
To the point where it's fucking up the trajectory of their life. And I don't mean to be dramatic, but that is like a deep-seated fear that I have. We hear formerly gifted kids talking about it, but we also hear neurodivergent kids talking about it. We hear disabled kids talking about it. Like, how many different subgroups of children are we going to hear say, hey, my love for learning died in the 4th grade because of X, Y, and Z, and then I didn't want to do anything? Or they have this anxiety because they've internalized this judgment on themselves based on how they did in elementary school. Or they were coasting through elementary school so that by the time they hit middle school, they weren't trying, and then, oh shit, they got into honors and they drowned. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or
I'm literally having so many thoughts right now. So
yes, tell me.
One, what you're saying, really, I was just like a little bit in my feelings before we were recording this because I had a really cool lesson today and they were not into it at all. And I've taught this lesson before, and in past years, kids have been very into it. So I thought they were going to be into it. And I think it goes like, it's because of the loss of enjoying learning. Like, I think a lot of kids view learning as something that's boring, unenjoyable, stressful, anxiety inducing. And I think that is the biggest hindrance, because like, if you don't enjoy learning at all in any way, shape, or form, it's going to be really hard for you to be successful, whatever successful means to you. Because to be successful in any way, shape, or form, financially, socially, in your community, artistically, you have to be able to learn and grow and do new things and get better over time. And I think we're really like robbing kids in elementary school of that experience. And then I think that's why I was just wondering, like, why didn't my kids really like my lesson today? Because no one be weird about this. I promise it was professional. We talked about the history of like the cartels and drug trafficking and the war on drugs and mass incarceration. And like, normally to have your teacher literally talking about Pablo Escobar and like the Medellin cartel, kids are like wide-eyed attention on me. They think it's crazy that we're talking about this at school. Like, I pull up we go to departmentofjustice.gov and look at that 1996 CIA report, baby. Like, normally they're like fascinated by that and they feel like it's such a secret. But today, like 3 of my kids were really into it, but the other ones were just like so bored and not into it at all. And I was like, you guys really hate learning. Like, even when we're talking about something that is objectively interesting, y'all are really having a bad time.
I think that's a really good point. I mean, no hate to them. It's May.
Yeah, they are over the sound of my voice.
I feel like they're probably over a lot of shit.
They're like, girl, shh.
It makes me really sad because any romanticized version in my head of like how education is supposed to be is like squished.
Yeah.
And I can't think of a setting where that's not the case.
Exactly. Because I think especially we really like, we're getting in there today. Like, I think you're totally right that especially at the lower grades, it's the loss of getting enjoyment out of learning. Like, I think that's the purpose of school for really K-5 is to teach kids to enjoy learning and how to be inquisitive, like just how to be curious about things and want to know things. And I think that is like, to me, the most important and simultaneously our like biggest failure right now.
And that's why people get so into unschooling, because like you're letting children do basically what they want. And I think people have let the pendulum swing to the opposite side, because in the educational setting right now, like as public school and private school and everything is, it's so constricting that the overcorrection of that is really extreme.
What if we did nothing?
Right.
What if they didn't read?
It makes me really sad because kids learn to read faster if they like the material that they're reading. When they're given a choice and voice in the projects that they do, kids excel. And when we give them like an assessment menu or whatever they call it right now, we see that they're not so intimidated by assessments because they're able to do that the way that speaks to them best. But who has the fucking time? I was so tired of like going into the classroom and knowing that I was doing something that wasn't serving my students as well as something else that I wanted to do would.
Every time I have to give like a district benchmark and I'm sitting there and I'm like, we could be learning how to detect bias in news, but here we are doing multiple choice questions that aren't even standard aligned.
Yeah.
I'm experimenting with this right now, actually. I'm going to actually use my computer.
Oh.
I've never done this before, and it's not a assessment type, but this came from a place of laziness. I want everyone to know that and accept that. So for anyone listening that's like, oh, I would do that, but it seems like a lot of work. It wasn't. I did it because I was too lazy to make assignments, because now that their standardized testing is done, we've just been doing random things every day. And I was like, why would I make assignments about the random things? So I made this choice board and printed 30 copies of it and laminated it. So every day I give some kind of little spiel. So like tomorrow we're learning about Love Canal, which was like a toxic dump site, and then like people got in trouble. It's just like a cool little interesting story about like environmentalism. So I yap for like 20-30 minutes, and then they have to pick something from this choice board, and I'll read you the options because this literally took me like 10 minutes to make. The options are: write a paragraph, write a song, make a poster, write a timeline, make a brochure, create a cause effect chart, make a comic strip, make a quiz, or write a letter pretending you're living through the event. And some of them have been doing cool stuff, and I hated being creative in school in classes I didn't like. So that's why anytime I do anything like this, writing a paragraph is always the first choice, because if you really don't want to deal with me and my bullshit, you can write a paragraph. It's fine.
Oh my gosh, that's really cool.
I wish this is the kind of things we got trained on. This is not an assessment. This is more just like funsies classwork time. But just like what you're saying, like it takes time to do these and time to grade them, because I'm very in favor and into portfolio assessments. Instead of like the third grade reading test, we have like a portfolio of your work from third grade to see how you're doing. But like what you said, like who grades that? Do we pay them extra for grading that? When is that getting done? How do we make sure that grading is unbiased? Like,
man, I shocked when I went to third grade and had to start grading. Because I had only graded kindergarten.
What does that even look like to grade kindergarten?
The most you grade is a couple sentences, maybe.
My new strategy, I really hope none of my students are listening. Just know I'm so sorry. And I am going to be willing to answer to my crimes if any of you bring this up. This year grading has been like actually making me want to jump out a window, because this is the first year I've taught the AP class, so that, which I love, but this is the first year I've had to grade essays. And the first couple that we did almost killed me. Like truly almost killed me, because I take it serious. Like if I asked you to write an essay, I'm not going to just skim it. I'm going to actually read it. With a lot of their work, I just skim it, especially once I get to know them. I can kind of tell whether they tried their best on it or not. But with the essays, filling out the rubric for every individual one, I was suffering so bad. So this is what I started doing. So I have them grade each other's with the rubric.
Ooh, yeah.
So then when I'm grading it, I don't know why it's so much easier, but when the rubric is filled out already, it's easier to either just like agree or disagree with them and be like, nah, that doesn't count as evidence. You're being too nice. Rather than just like starting from scratch. Not a single thing has been looked at all. So I told them, I was like, this is great because you get to read other people's and you'll learn from each other, which is true.
My grad school professor did that.
Okay, I feel less bad now. If people who are paying good money have to do it, then at our free school, it's fine.
She was like, once you peer review your peers' work, it helps you understand the intricacies of the rubric and like helps apply it to your work, which I do think is valid. Like I really enjoy that type of thing to like help me absorb and internalize a rubric, but it really helps the teacher too.
No, like I'm speeding through these essays now. Some of them are really hard on each other. Like when I was listening to them grade each other, because I like walk around and help them and stuff, some of them were so mean to each other. They were like, that's not context. I know you think it is, but they'd be like, the rubric says cannot be awarded for a phrase or sentence. You only have a phrase. I was like, wow, he's really like getting on you right now. I'm sorry. Like, I feel like I'm like watching my coworker get yelled at by a customer. Like, I'm like, ooh. I'm like, nothing I can do. She got to sit back and watch. When I hear them being too mean, I always go, I would not want to be your employee. Let's tone it down. There's so many things that I feel like, to the point of this episode, what's the point of school? There's so many things that I feel like I do with them that truly are the point of school, like doing peer review. Like that is building so many skills, how to like kindly and objectively review someone, how to accept feedback from a peer. But like all these things, I feel like it's the teacher's idea, and it's never like the education system created to be conducive to doing it. Like, it takes so much extra work on the teacher. Because I will say, the first time we did that, oh my God, because they've never had to grade anybody before. So it was a big lift the first time we did it. I was wondering if that light was at the end of the tunnel. It is now that we've done it a bunch of times, but the first times they were all just like giving each other hundreds, and I was like, girl, no, I know that's a friend, but no.
I think there's also a middle ground too. There are some schools that don't provide curriculum for teachers, and they're like, well, you create your own curriculum. And for a lot of people, like for me, that sounded really nice. But then as a first year teacher, I realized I didn't have the training or the ability to really serve my students well without some type of framework, like a curriculum to modify or go off of. And I think my kids, they learned how to read, but I think they really could have done a lot better if I had been more supported.
That's why I love my new class, like the advanced class, so much, is because I think it's like the perfect happy medium of curriculum. Because when I've taught US history, it's been like I have a book, but I don't have curriculum. Like, I don't have ready to go worksheets, videos that are aligned. Like, it was a lot of like me copying and pasting from like history.com into a PowerPoint. I was literally doing that today. And like you said, that's too much. Like, it's really overwhelming to be one person and have to come up with a whole little show for every single day from scratch is just a big ask. And then I've also done not teaching, but like tutoring and things like that, where it was an insanely rigid curriculum. And I also hated that because, like you said, there's no room for flexibility. There's no room for creativity, for like differentiation. And what I like about the AP curriculum is like, I have tons of stuff and resources out there, but it's up to me to like pick and choose. Like, I feel like I have a buffet. Like, there's a million Quizlets, there's a million videos, there's a million worksheets that are boring textbook, there's document analysis, there's like, because it's a nationwide course, so many teachers have made so much stuff that I have like this beautiful cornucopia to choose from of like curriculum and resources. And it's all usually very organized. And I feel like that's what set me up to be successful with them, is like when they were really struggling with writing, I found a good outline. And then like the next time we did it, we used the outline. But like if it had been on me to make all that stuff from scratch, it would not have gone as well as it has been.
I really struggled in the elementary setting to do that with 8 different subject areas.
Oh God, I can't even imagine.
I found myself feeling like I was failing my kids because I couldn't do it in every single subject. And I was really focused on like literacy and math. And then everything else kind of was like getting it where you can, really.
Just a vibe. So YouTube video here and a game and activity there.
I mean, that's why a lot of schools combine science and social studies into ELA, because it's like you're drowning in trying to get these minutes of reading instruction. So then you're like, well, but the thing we're reading about is this Sciency thing, you know, and that's like the bulk of it.
That's supposed to be like checking that box and getting that done, which we've had an episode about. I have a lot of feelings about that.
Yeah, and like education should not be checking a box.
I was actually talking to my students about this the other day. I feel so bad when they try and talk to me about like things in education, and then I'm just like way too real with them, and then they look so depressed. Because they were asking me, they're like, why do we take standardized tests? Like, it makes no sense. It's just a waste of time. And I was kind of explaining to them, like, we do need some way to track how you're doing and compare you to your peers. And I was telling them, I think a better way to do that would be a portfolio system, like I've talked about before. And they were all hype about it. And they were like, yeah, we should do that. You should tell somebody. Like, they were like so ready to change the world. And I was like, we got to answer a lot of questions, though. What if the grader is a racist? Then what? I was like, how are we paying the grader? Who do you get to grade your own students? I could just pass all of you because I like you. And like when I started asking those questions, they looked so stressed out. They were like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And I was like, I don't know. You're the next generation. You let me know. That's how this is supposed to work.
You're like, I don't know, honeys. I've been trying to hash that out on the internet and now a podcast for
I was like, me
over a year.
Several 100,000 people are asking the exact same questions you are, and we're all scared.
There's so much.
Everything happens so much and so little at the same time.
I know. And then education being up to the states is also really frustrating because there's
very chaotic.
It's so different everywhere that it's like you can't even speak in absolutes or like team up with other people as much as you might like to, because everything's fucking different everywhere.
In some ways, I really like that because I think like every community has different needs. And like we're saying, the purpose of education should be to like serve the need that you will have as an adult in your community. But from like a trying to fix things perspective, it really makes things much more complicated. If everyone could just go in their Amazon Prime house and eat their Amazon Prime dinner and log on to their Amazon Prime school, I feel like it should be a lot more clear cut. That was derogatory to Amazon Prime, by the way. Not positive. This was not an ad. I want to make that abundantly clear.
I think it's hard to stay motivated. I don't know why I stay motivated, though. When I've established over and over again that there's all these roadblocks in the way to actually making education what I believe it should be. And then people are like, well, are you going to go back to teaching? And I'm like, hell yeah, I'm going back to teaching. I'm chomping at the bit. Why? I think it's like because I'm answering my own question. That's so weird. But something that I've always believed is that I can make a difference in my own classroom. Even though there's a lot of issues with this educational system in our society overall, I always find a little bit of comfort in that I can close my door and teach, and that our class community is going to be kind of what we make it, which is why I think I obsess so much over classroom management stuff, because I think that that's really how you can set up the learning environment so that your students can access education in a way that's like meaningful without squashing their love of learning as much as possible. You can't always do everything that you want 24/7, and I get that. But
damn it, if I'm going to try and destroy my mental and physical health in the process.
Dude, and now as a parent, I'm just like even more. People are like, okay, are you sending Jay to preschool? And she's going to turn 2 next week. And I'm still like, I don't know. Side thing before we go back. Every single school is having me sign a permission form saying that they can post her on social media. I have to check yes or I can't enroll her.
Yeah, I believe that.
What the fuck?
For ease of paperwork, I absolutely believe that.
You can't even type no. You have to check it and then sign it.
It's like, yeah, girl. Sign it, terms and conditions, bitch. It's like Apple.
So mad. Anyways, but yeah, so like shut my door and teach. And that's kind of, I think, why I'm so delulu, that I'm always ready to go back and always ready to like be fired up about this shit.
I got to make my favorite joke at work the other day. Got a lot of laughs from the older men, where one of them was like, I didn't realize they thought I worked in real estate, then taught in Miami, then worked here. They didn't realize I taught in Miami, then worked in real estate and came back. And he was like, you got out of teaching and came back? That's surprising to me. And I go, if teaching's a prison, just call me a reoffender. And I love making that joke so much. It always gets such a good reaction.
That joke is so relevant in so many ways.
No, because I feel I don't know what that feeling is, but I can imagine it's similar to this. Like, I feel a compulsion that makes no logical sense. Like, I know everyone looking at me is like, that woman's crazy. Like, for my Real Housewives of Atlanta fans, when Apollo went to prison the second time, I was like, what the fuck's wrong with you? Like, you have a house, you have a family. Like, why would you do fraud again? That's how I feel about teaching. It's like... Like, look at the situation. It does not make sense why you'd enjoy this.
I know, but I really do. And that's why I cannot understand when people are like, should I listen to your podcast if I actually want to be a teacher? And I'm like, of course.
I don't know.
I'm always like, you're not fired up by this. You're not here to change the world against all odds, even though it makes absolutely no sense. And I'm going to tell you every single week different things that make people leave this fucking profession.
Oh, no.
But I love it. Even like not in the classroom, I'm always like, ooh, I can be more of an asshole because nobody's going to call my school and try to get me fired. Like,
the sky is my limit, truly.
Yeah.
What can't I do?
But it doesn't make any sense for a lot of people. So I do respect that.
It doesn't, but
you went back.
Yeah. So this week is Teacher Appreciation Week. Another good laugh from the office ladies. They gave me a cookie for Teacher Appreciation Week. And I said, my favorite forms of appreciation are June, July, and my check. They love that one. That one fucking killed.
That's amazing.
I feel like at work, I have the sense of humor of like a 1950s TV show host.
Seriously? Like you're like cracking jokes.
Like, no, like that's all I do.
You give him the old ha-cha-cha every time you walk through the door.
I just like come in, use the teacher bathroom, check my mail, crack a little joke about hating my job, I'm out the door.
And it's like, I want to make a personality hire joke, but you're actually fucking really good at your job. So it's like, there's also that element of it.
I have this ongoing joke.
Oh, you're teacher of the month, aren't you?
Oh, yeah. Woohoo.
Congratulations.
I think I refused to like claim it because my co-teacher was like, everyone vote. I love her.
I think you deserve it, though.
I appreciate that. I have this ongoing bit with the front office employee who, like, when parents come to check out their kids or yell at us or like she's there, I have this ongoing joke that she's at like the front lines and we're in World War I. Like, me and her just have that bit going. I'll be like, any grenades today? Like,
the history teacher's making the funny relevant jokes to their subject area. You're literally like a TV show that somebody has written a history teacher.
Yeah, no, because that's what I think. No, I'm being so serious that I think that that's like my number one coping mechanism with my job is like I slip into a role. Like when I walk in those doors, like I am someone else. I don't know who she is. I don't know where she came from. I don't know why she has like the cadence and energy of a game show host from 1961. But the second I leave, that's not who I am. And I think it's like, it makes it easy to compartmentalize.
Watching you in that video stand there with your little hands folded in front of you while your kids were fucking around was so jarring. I was literally like, oh, she's like a teacher, like a whole ass teacher.
You mean where they were singing Beyonce's Drunken Love on the karaoke machine? Is that the incredible lore you're referring to?
Yes. I was like, oh my God.
I was like planning for how I was going to handle that if that video inevitably ended up on a projector with me in an office having to answer for my crimes. And my answer is the child in that video singing got a 98% on the practice AP exam. And that's what they wanted to do.
That's amazing.
And I was like, you know what? You can.
Yeah, seriously.
I was like, you can do that.
That's right.
98%.
That's amazing.
She missed 2 questions out of 55 that went from years 1490 to present day.
Holy shit.
So I was like, yeah, get on the karaoke machine and sing your Beyonce. You earned it.
And then the kids that failed, you're like, see what you could do.
This could be you.
This is the joy of education that we're discussing.
Exactly. That is the point.
Yeah.
In life, you learn that when you are a very high achiever, people will tolerate you loudly singing Beyonce in public.
And that, my friends, is the point of the education system. Thank you for joining us this week on Teacher Quit
I feel like this was quite the yap episode, but there were a lot of good tangents and good nuggets here.
I think we really hit everything. I think we talked about the point of school, the point of teaching, the point of education, and the system at large.
What's the point?
I don't know, but we're doing it.
We're here. Maybe one day we'll land the plane and get to the point. Today,
this is like a parent-teacher conference every week.
Yeah. It always goes awry.
Always.
I love hearing about y'all's marriages. That's top tier. If you could bring that up right when you walk in, that's ideal.
When you do your 5-star review, just drop a little lore about your marriage.
Else's marriage. A marriage you
does not have to be
destroyed.
yours.
1 year in. Anything.
We love you.
Love you. Have fun at work. Just as a disclaimer, because I am someone who is actively teaching, everything on this podcast is my personal opinion and does not reflect my district, my state, my employer, my students, or my admin. Everything on this podcast was recorded on personal time, on personal equipment, and is a completely separate endeavor from my school district.